So today we're back with some more basic footwork concepts. These are all ideas that I've incorporated into my style and that I utilize on the daily. So I just want to share them with you guys. Simple ideas, but when they're utilized correctly, they can really add a new flavor and just some freshness to your style. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let's go ahead and hop into it. So not too long ago, I did another video breaking down some basic footwork ideas. I want you guys to feel free to go check that out. I'll link it up here and also down in the description. This is kind of a part 2, and we're just gonna go ahead and get right into these ideas. I've got 5 of them for you today. Our first footwork concept that we're gonna talk about today is this idea of hooking. So what do I mean by hooking? There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this idea. You can hook in the front, you can hook in the back, you can hook and pull, you could sprinkle a hook into a different idea, hook and twist, hook and jump, hook and then manipulate. You can hook around other body parts, and so much more. Personally, I like to utilize this idea to sort of spice up my top rock. It just is like another little pathway that you can sprinkle in that really just gives you more options and adds a nice little funky flavor. I find myself hitting a step hook quite often whenever I freestyle. I really like using hooks to change the direction that my lower body or just my body is facing. And then jumping and hooking is really exciting and just sort of adds like an explosive element to your style. And you can do it however you want, but personally for me, I feel like with hooking, just the most important thing to think about is the angles that you're creating with your leg, and also just being specific about where your hook is landing. Now, obviously it does depend on what you're going for. Like, I don't always hook really high up. Sometimes I hook down here on my calf, or I hook higher up. I try to like hook up on my thigh. It really does just have to do with what you're going for. So really just trying your best to be clear and precise with the picture you're trying to create, I think is just the most important thing when it comes to this idea. Just explore, try to expand your boundaries. Don't limit yourself on what you think is possible. It's really a simple idea, but if you are creative, you can find so many different ways to incorporate it. So that's our first concept. Our second concept is something that we have talked about before on the channel, but I think not specifically in this way when it comes to just utilizing the idea for footwork. And that second concept is the heel-toe concept. I'd say that most of us are probably pretty familiar with the idea of using your heels and your toes. This idea is pretty universal and it extends over multiple dance genres and styles. And utilizing your heel-toe is just a really effective way to become more creative with your feet and the ways that you utilize them when you dance. So really, I feel like the big idea behind the heel toe is just isolating those 2 points on your foot, your heel and your toe, and then being mindful about how you can then incorporate those parts of your foot to generate new ideas. I feel like playing around with your heel and your toe really helps to combat like just this repetitive stepping that we can fall into, which isn't bad. It's not bad to step, but I feel like incorporating your heel and your toe is a really easy way to sort of break that up and just kind of expand your horizons for what's possible. This idea has been super helpful for me in that my heel and my toe are always there, and they're always something that I can fall back onto and really rely on to explore and try out new things. And you can take your weight onto your heel or your toe. You can take your weight away. You can rotate on your toes, kind of like a shamrock, or rotate on your heel. Not too long ago, we did a video breaking down the idea of crawls. Obviously, in a crawl, you're utilizing your heel and your toe primarily. So that is a whole concept that you can explore in and of itself. I feel like another cool thing about exploring the heel-toe idea is it kind of forces you to explore this idea of being turned out versus turned in, which is a whole nother thing. I think we're going to have a video coming out about that very soon. But it's cool. Part of the reason why I really like this idea is because it forces you to change the angle of your legs. And I think it opens your mind to all of those types of possibilities. I think it's easy to kind of get stuck in keeping our legs facing one direction. And I feel like this idea sort of helps to break that monotony and just forces you to explore a little bit deeper. You can crawl and tap, you can twist, slide, you can click your heels, you can click your toes. Just lots of different ways that you can explore and be creative. You also could experiment with it not just being the bottom of your shoe, like this is your toe and this is your heel. It could also be your toe and your heel. A little bit of this action. So that's our second concept that we're going to talk about today. Our third concept doesn't have as specific of a name. I don't know if there's a more established name that people have agreed on for this idea, but I just decided to call it what it kind of reminds me of. So this idea I'm calling the Groundhog idea. If you've ever played one of those games where the groundhog pops out of the ground and you're supposed to like smack it with the hammer, That's kind of what I think about when I think about this idea. I picture myself standing in a field or wherever, and there's little holes all over the ground. And as I'm stepping or as I'm walking, little groundhogs are popping out of the holes under my feet and pushing my foot into the air. And I feel like this is fun because instead of always stepping with the same accent, kind of making it about the setting down of the foot, this idea changes it and makes the accent about the lifting of the foot. Boom, 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 boom. This is just kind of a different approach to stepping or changing your foot placement, and it has a pretty cool effect. Instead of creating the illusion that you are the one producing your movement, even though you always are the one producing your movement, you're creating this illusion that something else is manipulating you or causing you to move in the way that you are. So this is just a fun idea that I play around with. And I think exploring this idea will also lead to exploration of different ideas that kind of go along with what I was just saying. This idea of outside forces being the cause or the initiator of your movement, that's a fun concept in and of itself, and we can talk more about that in later videos. You can just do one foot with this idea. You can come up and cross. You can do both feet. And you can see I'm incorporating the rest of my body to kind of add to this illusion. You don't just have to think only your foot is affected by the groundhog. The groundhog idea is more so just to give you a concept for why you're doing what you're doing. But I also think it's important to think about how the rest of your body can add to that illusion. Now, you don't always have to pick your whole foot off the ground. It could just be your heel, your toe. Playing around with isolating a little bit more. Just give yourself some freedom to exercise your imagination a little bit. That's our third concept. Our fourth concept is an idea that I utilize quite frequently, and that's this idea of a dotted line. What do I mean by that? We've talked before on this channel about stepping, right? Your foot goes from point A to point B, wherever you want it to go. We've also talked about the idea of skating, leaving your feet on the floor to get from point A to point B. You could think about those two ideas like this. The first one, stepping, being point A and point B, and us just switching between those 2 points. The second, skating, being a straight, clear line from point A to point B. And then when it comes to this idea of a dotted line, instead of thinking about one straight continuous line or no line at all and simply going from point A to point B, thinking about adding little digits in between those 2 points. An example of that could look like this. Instead of going from point A to point B right away, I could find little tick marks in between. 1 and 2 and 3. This is an idea that I'll utilize quite frequently. It just helps you to attach your movement to a different rhythm in the music that is not always even, right? You're tapping into playing around with that double time rhythm. Although you can utilize this idea on full tempo, just thinking slower switches between the ticks. But typically, I'll utilize this idea to sort of explore with manipulating my timing and just adding a little digit in between points that I'm traveling to. Like I'll typically utilize it when I'm stepping. If I've kind of just been going like this for a while, I might try and sprinkle in just some extra points of contact that add a different rhythm and just kind of give it a cool effect. I feel like typically I'll usually add just 1 point in between point A and point B, but you can add multiple. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to catch that and count in between our even count. So instead of just stepping 1, 2, we're finding 1 and 2. This just helps you to kind of explore a different rhythm and add a new point of contact to just kind of switch up what you're doing. Let's say you've been stuck here for a while, playing around with your feet placement, and everything's just very even. Adding in little ticks can change up the rhythm of what you're doing and just kind of give you more options or a new element to play around with. Now you could do these coming forward, 1 and 2. You could do them moving backward, 1 and 2. You can lead with the foot that's ticking, 1 and 2. You could also think about stepping your feet together to add a tick, 1 and 2. Or you could add one in between a jump. Let's say you're going here to here. You could add a little tick in between, 1 and 2. It's kind of more of a running man, but you get the idea. You can take your weight over the foot that's ticking. You could take it away from the foot that's ticking. So many options to explore. This is just a fun and I think super easy and practical way that you can experiment with manipulating your timing a little bit. I feel like it's one of the easiest ways to break the monotony of always stepping on the 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a simple idea that you can explore and play around with. That was our fourth concept. And now our fifth and our final concept that we're going to talk about today is this idea of swinging. Now, when we're talking about swinging, I'm specifically talking mostly about swinging our foot, or at least that's how I utilize this idea mostly. And that could look something like swinging behind and in front, swinging back and forth, jumping and swinging, kind of just imagining that your leg is limp or that it's like a piece of rope and that you have a ball or something attached to the end of that rope and you're just swinging that ball around. And you can swing and keep the ball in the air, or you can swing and set that ball down. You can turn and swing, add a kick. Maybe you start with a swing that leads into a kick. You can go down to the floor to swing. You can manipulate with other parts of your body to add to the illusion. It's different than just straight, kicking forward. You're sort of allowing your leg to have this pendulum effect, swinging back and forth like a clock arm. You see this idea a lot in New Jack Swing vocabulary. Like when you see people playing around with this idea, it's not like position, 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 There's a swing to it. And so just playing around with this idea of swinging your foot, and I think that it opens up a whole new concept that is not kicking and is not placing. There's a sequence to it, and it sort of just adds a new texture to your footwork. That's really fun. Now, in my opinion, you can utilize all of these ideas by themselves and just play around with them in your footwork or incorporate them on their own. I also think that these ideas are super effective in acting as like little add-ons or just little sprinkles of sauce onto other more basic footwork ideas. Maybe you're playing around with some of your top rock footwork patterns, and instead of just playing around with your kick step rock and your top rock pattern, you can start there and incorporate a hook or a swing into whatever vocabulary you are already playing around with. So you can explore and incorporate and utilize these ideas all by themselves, or you can utilize them as little add-ons or little sprinkles of sauce to vocabulary that you already know or ideas that you're already playing around with. I do personally, and I feel that they have added a lot to my style, and so I just wanted to share them with you guys, and hopefully they're useful and you guys can incorporate them into your style and just make them your own. But I think that's pretty much going to do it for this video today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Comment down below if you guys would like more videos breaking down specific footwork ideas, or if there's any ideas in this video that you need further clarification on. Be more than happy to help you guys out any way that I can. And be sure to go check out The Shed on Instagram. There's lots of stuff going on over there. You can get information about local events and possibly about being able to come to The Shed. So go ahead and head on over to the Instagram and just kind of see what we got going on over there. And again, I just want to thank you guys so much for your time and for your support in watching this video. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace out.